Hello, everyone. I can see it says I'm live. All right. Uh, so I just wanted to share with you. I know a lot of people have asked me, why have I moved to Cambodia? And you see quite a variety of videos regarding just daily life here in Cambodia. Um, and so the reason, though, it goes back to 2003 when I attended the Sundance Film Festival. I hope you guys can hear me using this microphone. Uh, my fan's on, so I hope it's not disrupting the sound. Um, Nobody's in here right now for the live, so I can't ask anybody. Can you hear me? Uh, I guess if the sound's not good, I'll just delete the video and do it again another time. So back to 2003. I attended the Sundance Film Festival. I was there on a press pass. So I was interviewing a lot of different filmmakers and actors and things. In fact, um, I did tell one of my stories regarding Oliver Platt in another video, earlier video. So you can go to my channel and check that out if you're interested in stories about meeting actors. So anyway, yes, I will admit it that as a teenager, Matt Dillon was a heartthrob of mine. You know, all the Tiger Beat and Teen Beat magazines and things like this. I always had the pinup posters uh, in my room, watched all his movies. Um, so when I saw that he had directed a film called City of Ghosts and he was available for interviews, yeah, sign me up, right? Um, so I saw the movie, and when I saw the movie, there was something, just like a little seed planted, that touched my heart and was like, and I remember distinctly thinking, I would go there. And it's kind of odd because the movie's not, oh, look how wonderful Cambodia is. It's actually kind of quite a dark side of Cambodia, kind of set in the 1990s. And so, uh, but it captured bits of the culture, uh, and it did capture a lot of the beauty of Cambodia in the midst of the story. Uh, so that was kind of the start of it, right? So and if you know about the Sundance Film Festival, it's a very small town, but it during the film festival, it is complete gridlock all the time. So to get from one side of town to the other side of town can take hours. So you really have to plan well if you have to be at a movie screening at one place and then an interview at another place. Um, and so on the last day that Matt Dillon was going to be available, I just kind of camped out there, uh, so that if there was just even a little bit, because the publicist was like, "Oh no, there's no time, um, everything's booked." So it's like, okay, well, there's got to be, somebody arriving late, then I can squeeze in. Right? So while I was waiting in their what they had like a hotel room suite that was like the office, and so I was like in the living room area waiting for Matt Dillon, a break with Matt Dillon for him to finish the interview that he was currently in. And there was a gentleman, a Cambodian gentleman that I recognized from the film. He plays Mr. Sok, the cyclo driver. And so I thought, okay, this would be a great addition. If I'm writing a story, the more actors that I have that I've interviewed for the story, the better. So I started talking to Sra, and he did contribute to my story. And he also said, "Oh, please come to Cambodia and meet my family and all of this." And I'm like, "I would love to come to Cambodia and meet your family." So we exchanged our information. And this was in 2003. So by 2006, I have an opportunity to travel. And I was working with the Bangkok International Film Festival. I helped write for their program, which is like a really, really um, a thick book because they have so many films. Uh, so I did that prior to the festival, and then during the festival, I was working in their VIP relations. And so I planned it that okay, if I'm going to Bangkok, then I can go to Cambodia. But unlike now, there's so much information and videos on YouTube and things that you can find about Cambodia. The only thing was Lonely Planet, and about the only thing I could find was that you have no access to get money when you're there. Uh, so make sure that whatever budget you have, you bring it with you. Um, don't go out at night. Make sure you're in someplace safe at night, like after 8 o'clock. Don't be outside and things like this. Uh, but I was like, but I'm going to do it. And traveling from Bangkok into Cambodia, to Phnom Penh, I went through Koh Kong, uh, was quite an adventure. And that I could just tell you whole other stories about traveling. But I'll say this: I had such a feeling of wow, I am a world traveler, and I'm traveling alone. I'm a woman traveling alone. I was in my 40s, I guess, and I was so excited to be making this trip to Cambodia. But I thought, okay, I'm only going to stay for 3 days because it is kind of dangerous. I'm going to do it, but I need to be realistic. And so then I'll go back to Thailand and stay on the island of Koh Chang for the final 3 weeks or so of my trip before catching my flight home out of Bangkok. Uh, but so I get to Phnom Penh and I call Sra. I'm like, okay, I'm here. And he meets up with me and he starts taking me around to all these different places for 3 days. And I think it was kind of interesting that uh, there was like no sexism in the sense of I was an international tourist, and I think that uh, based on the places he took me, that he normally showed men around. So, uh, like one of the places was Martini Bar, and it doesn't even exist anymore, uh, but it's legendary for the time, and there's a lot of prostitutes there. Uh, you know, uh, but I enjoyed seeing that side existed. We went to Snowy's Bar over the bridge. We would all say the Choi Chung Ba Bridge, or the Japanese Friendship Bridge, we would call it as well. Uh, and that, I mean, Snowy was also in the film. He acted in City of Ghosts in a small part, but a memorable part. And his little bar was like all painted blue, and it had all these like bells about this big that were, I guess, brass, um, and probably used on cows. Uh, and and so he put these. I mean, they were just hanging from the ceiling in rows all over, across the ceiling. And the best thing to do there was like watch the sun. You were on the correct side to watch the sunset, the correct side of the river. Um, so we went to Snowy's bar. We went to the Killing Fields and the S-21 Genocide Museum. Um, both of those were really moving. We went to the Killing Fields first, excuse me, and it was really, really kind of sad and impactful, but it didn't hit me the same way that S-21 did. And for those of you who don't know, it you can kind of compare it to the Auschwitz of Cambodia, right? Um, it wasn't a work camp. It was solely for torture. And when you were brought there, you did not um, you generally did not leave alive unless they were taking you out from there to the killing fields where they killed you. So I mean, technically, in that case, you would leave the building alive, but a lot of people died there in the building because of the extreme torture they went through, and and they were extremely careful to document every single person that came in by taking their photograph and then writing in books their information. Uh, and so, as a museum, they've taken a lot of those photographs and put them in like on boards. So it's like walls and walls of these photographs. And I wanted to like honor each person and like look at each and every picture. And like some people were just absolutely defeated. And other people, you could see that fire was still in their eyes, even though they were there. Their spirit was still there and defiant. You know, um, there were women and children and people of all ages. Uh, so I'm looking at these pictures and I noticed that Sra is also looking very intently at these pictures. And I guess I asked him why or whatever. Somehow he told me that he was looking for his father's face because he doesn't know to this day exactly what happened to his father. Um, his father was a doctor. He showed me like where his dad worked. Um, he was young. I mean, he's only a year or two older than me. I'm 56 now. Uh, so anyway, I think he would have been about 7 years old or something when it happened. When Phnom Penh was evacuated. If you don't know the story of the Khmer Rouge, then that's something for you to go look at and research on your own because that's not the point of this stream. So his dad was taken that right then, when they were removed from the city because he was a doctor, and that means you're educated, and he never saw him again. And so most likely he was killed then. Uh, and S-21 as a torture center didn't actually open until later. So it's unlikely that he would have seen his dad there. I mean, I know that now. At the time, I didn't really know those specifics. But anyway, he was like looking at every picture, and that just broke my heart. You know, and living through all that was just, he still had so much kindness and so much love for people. You know, um, we went to Hurley's Mexican restaurant. Hurley was a man that I think worked on like production, set design. Uh, he had a restaurant called Cantina on the Riverside. We went there, uh, and we just spent 3 days going all around Phnom Penh. And I'm wondering, like, where's his family? And finally, on the last day, because I was only going to stay for 3 days, he says, "Would you like to meet my family?" I said, "Yes, of course, I would love to." And He goes, well, they live outside of town. They live in the countryside, um, and it's kind. We'll go on the motorcycle, but it's really tiring to get there. So it would be really nice if we could spend the night and then come back the next day. But if you don't want to, then I'll bring you back to Phnom Penh the same day. Don't worry. Uh, but it would be really good. And it was like a 2.5, 3 hour motorcycle ride. Well, that's if you went straight through, but we actually stopped at Udong Mountain, um, which has like 400 steps to get to the top. I was like, but at the bottom, he said, before we go up, you need to drink this. And I'd seen people drinking like sodas and drinks out of plastic bags with a straw stuck in them. It was like really strange, but uh, he said we need to drink sugarcane juice. And there was this big hand, it's like the wheel of a ship, what at least historical ships with pirates and stuff like that. They've got that big wheel, and it's got all those spokes sticking out of it. Well, it was like that, and so she had to like turn it by hand like this to make these wheels that, well, you put the sugar cane in, and then it crushes the sugar cane to make the juice, and then she puts it in the bag. uh, so that he's like, here, you gotta drink this. I'm like, okay. And that was my first time drinking anything out of a plastic bag, and my first time drinking sugarcane juice, which is absolutely amazing. I love it. Um, and so then we embark on this like 400 steps up to the top of. Wait, I said Udong. It wasn't Udong. It was Phnom Chizo. Okay, I apologize. So we, but Udong Mountain also has steps. But when I was there, because I had this experience with Sra, I was with a different friend, and we went like halfway up, and I was like, I'm not going the rest of the way. You can go by yourself. And I paid some little boy $1 to fan me. So I sat on the steps, and he stood there like with a fan fanning me for $1. Uh, anyway, back to this original experience. Um, so I get to the top, and there's like a picture of me up there, and my face is like absolutely completely red. I was, that heat stroke or heat exhaustion? I think it's heat stroke. uh, I mean, I was so red, and I was not in good shape. And I don't know if I drank another sugarcane juice up there, or just a bottle of water or whatever, coconut juice, that has electrolytes. That's good in that situation. Um, but I finally, you know, recovered. We went back down. Of course, he showed me all the old temples up there and everything. And one of the reasons he wanted to go there is because that Phnom Chizo is one of the locations they used in Phnom in City of Ghosts. So then we continued on the way, and went to his family home in Takao province. Uh, Anyone who knows the rolling elephant hill, Phnom Dombrai Romeo, uh, we were close to, at the bottom of this, like near the base of this hill, uh, next to a pagoda that has like this huge pond. It's a reservoir that is somehow spring fed, so it never runs out of water. So it's kind of famous for the area, I guess, but I never remember the name of the pagoda. But this was his village, and his wife, his 3 kids, and his mother-in-law were there living in the house. She was super excited that she had just gotten a job working at a factory for $40 a month. Uh, Minimum wage now is almost 200. I think it's like 178 or 180, something like this, per month, working in a factory. But back then, in 2006, this is when this trip was happening. Uh, She was excited to get a job for $40 a month, working in a factory, like a garment factory or something. Uh, anyway, I had told Sra when he asked me about staying the night. Uh, my saying was, if you can live, I can live. Because you have to realize something about me, that the the whole idea of living, well, what now we call the preppers and off the grid and stuff like this. Um, for my generation, there was a film called The Wilderness Family and stuff, and of course there were hippie communes and things like this, people living naturally. Uh, that appealed to me, living with nature. And so for me, I didn't see people living in the countryside as poor. I saw them as living with nature, you know. And so I told him, if you can live, I can live. There was no question. This is even before I got there. I didn't know if I'd have to like use the bushes for a toilet or what. I didn't know, but if they can live, I can live, right? Um, Fortunately, Matt Dillon was very kind and had helped Sra out over the years beyond just being paid for working in his movie. Uh, and he was able to have a nice wooden house on stilts and a an old fashioned water pump. So he had a fresh water out of groundwater from a water pump right on his property. Sometimes you have villages that have one pump for the whole village, right? But he had one on his property. In fact, I don't think anyone else in the village had one. Uh, and he had one of the porcelain squat toilets. They're called squat toilets, um, in like a little outhouse kind of thing. And you had like a big uh, cistern uh, of water with a like a plastic pot shape scoop that you would rinse yourself off with. Um, and so that's better than a bush. So that that was the beginning of 10 days in the countryside because I did not want to leave. It was this perfect blend of a little bit of modern with that traditional living off the land and people bartering, oh, here's a couple of coconuts, here's a chicken, whatever, right? You didn't need to have a lot of money. They had a car battery that was used for electricity, so you could run a light bulb at night, you could run a radio. They even had a small TV and VCR that, at least I think it was a VCR. It might have been a DVD player, but you could watch movies. Um, but they didn't run it every day. They didn't run it all day. Uh, Once in a week or something, you might watch a movie, right? But generally, the radio would be played sometimes, and the light bulb would be on at night. Um, and they would charge cell phones because they had cell phones, but they didn't have smartphones. They just had a little Nokia regular phone. For internet, we had to go into the, not all the way to the town of Takal, but to the national road, where there was an internet shop. And that was, it was about an hour. Okay. So it was an hour motorcycle ride to go to an internet shop. So it's a little shop with all these computers in it, maybe 6 or 8 computers. And you would pay by the hour to use that computer to connect to the internet. And then you could check your emails and everything. Generally, that's all you do. You didn't really spend much time like researching or watching YouTube or whatever. You just checked your email and then got off because you were paying by the hour. Um, We had a motorcycle. I mean, on the modern side of it, right? So you could get around and do these things. The food was absolutely amazing. Mostly you would have rice with some kind of dish. If you think of going to a Chinese restaurant where you have sweet and sour chicken or sweet and sour pork with rice on the side, right? Or you have beef and broccoli with rice on the side. Um, those dishes like that, they would just make whatever, oh, these vegetables, a little bit of meat, um, some kind of little sauce with it, and rice. And every time it was different, and every time it was amazing. And and I stayed away from fish though because I like swordfish, I like tuna fish. That's about it. Um, and river fish, ugh, no, and little bones, no. Um, so whenever they ate fish, though, they would make me some kind of little dish with some chicken or some beef or whatever, or pork. I did try frog once. Not, yeah, it tastes kind of like chicken. Not something I would eat every day. Not something I would ask for. But being served it, okay, yeah, I ate it and it was okay. I didn't eat any. I've never to this day had any bugs. Although you can get fried crickets, fried spiders, fried scorpions, whatever. Um, they're not popular. It's almost more for the tourists. But Cambodians might drink it like you would have salted peanuts with your beer or popcorn with beer. Might have fried crickets with beer. Um, there was a wedding during this 10 days. There was a funeral. Um, we went on an ox cart ride. I had palm juice from literally a man climbs up a palm tree and then they have this bamboo container where, oh, this is baby Wilbur. Yeah, say hello, baby Wilbur. Okay, good girl. Um, they climb up so they put this bamboo like a bucket, but it's bamboo, so it's like this round, and then it's like long, and they put that, and then the flowers in the flowers like just drip, 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 drip into that, and then that's pure palm juice. And then they make palm wine out of it if they add different herbs and stuff and let it sit to ferment or something, and it turns into palm wine. But fresh palm juice right out of the guy was in the tree. We were on our ox cart ride, and Srak started talking to somebody, and I'm like looking around, going like, "Who is he talking to?" And finally, because like I didn't even hear anybody replying, but he could hear, I guess, because they were like talking back and forth. And it was a guy that was up in the palm tree, and he came over. We sat there in the ox cart and waited for him to come over, and he brought us palm juice. And I got a picture of that. Uh, I guess I could have used that on the thumbnail, but oh well. Um, maybe I can add it in the comments. I can add that picture. So that was and the wedding itself, that was, I don't know, maybe I should like make a whole new video on the wedding because there's so many stories I could tell about that. So let me just say that those 10 days living with that family, already being predisposed to that type of lifestyle, I absolutely fell in love with Cambodia. Um, and to think that everybody survived the Khmer Rouge and yet they were still so loving and so kind and so generous. Oh, I I I can't stand cold water. It's like literally painful for me. And so like again, like you take that little bucket thing like in the washroom where the squat toilet is, and you flip water on yourself, and that's how you bathe or shower. And I tried to do it and it was cold and I couldn't do it. And I come back out and I'm like, okay, it's like on the first night, right? and everything's dirt roads, so you are quite dirty. Um, and I tell him, okay, tomorrow when the sun heats up the water, I'll use that. But I cannot do the cold water. And he goes, oh, okay, no problem. And we sit and we talk for a little bit. Well, unbeknownst to me, he had his wife go in where their kitchen was. Ah, no, uh, no. This is kitty. No, trying to chew on the cord. Um, so the kitchen was fire, like wood fire, and so you had the wooden house. It you had like a shack, and the shack was divided. On one end of the shack, a little bit had the toilet and the water for the toilet, and then majority of this big shack was the kitchen area. So you had like a couple of tables for preparing the food and everything, and you had the fire in there. They started up the fire, they heated up some water, and like in a big 5-gallon bucket, they added the hot water to make warm water for me to bathe with warm water. And like so simple. It's like I don't know why I didn't think of that. But but they knew what to do, right? And she didn't have to start up the fire and heat up that water to do that for me, but she did. You know, I'm gonna cry because her kindness and her love. And if you know from one of my previous videos, Sra died about 2 weeks ago, which is why I'm kind of compelled to tell the story now. And when I went to their house, I saw the kids. They're all grown now. I'm used to them being little kids, like during this visit. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, or whatever. And then Sophia, that's his wife, comes up to me, and she just like held on to me. Not a hug. It wasn't a hug. It was like somebody drowning and grasping you. She held me so tight and was weeping, which then, of course, made me weep. And so when I'm talking about Sophia now, it's making me think about that. Just it was his 7-day ceremony, like 1 week ago, and making me think of her, making me want to cry. Um, anyway, so then after around 10 days, I Sra says, "Okay, I have to go back to Phnom Penh. I got a phone call. Someone needs my help. I need to go." And so we need to go back to Phnom Penh. I said, no, I'll stay here. It's like, no, I can't leave you here. Nobody in the village speaks English. There was like little old ladies would come up and like touch me and touch my skin. They were fascinated with my nose. They were always touching my nose. Uh, no personal boundaries, personal space that doesn't exist, right? And little kids, they'd like stand behind each other and like try to push one to go up to touch me, you know. Um, and then the ones that had learned a little bit of English were trying to practice their English with me, which was only, "Hello, what is your name? Where are you from? How old are you?" And one other question I don't remember anymore. But the answers, they learned a specific question and a specific answer. So if I didn't answer it the way that they knew, then they would like, it's like, uh-oh, I don't know those words, right? Uh, so I figured that out pretty quick, and played along, and it really gave them a lot of confidence, because here these kids in the village were being taught these four little sentences, questions and replies, and had only practiced with each other, and they didn't know if it would really work. And here was someone that they could try it out on, and it really worked. And so they were real excited, made them so excited. And I was happy to participate in that and bring them some joy in that way. Um, anyway, I was also kind of at one point I had like a Helen Keller moment. Uh, if you're too young to know who Helen Keller is, you need to just go look that up. And so the kids, Sroth's kids, I asked them. I think the first thing was dog, um, and they finally understood that I wanted to know what the word for dog was, and they told me chkai, and I learned how to say chkai, and then they learned tell me cat, and that's chma, and then I found out the ants are stromaut because kenyam sraap saap kenyam saap stromaut. I hate ants because ants bite me. Kenyam saap stromaut stromaut kum kenyam. Ants bite me. They do. The ants bite me, and I don't like. I hate the saap is like hate. It's not like don't like. It's hate. Um, so yeah, I was like just starting to learn a little bit of Khmer. You do some sign language, you draw some pictures on a paper, whatever, you can communicate. It's not a problem. And but he's like, no, 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 I can't leave you. I can't leave you. You have to come back to Phnom Penh. I'm like, okay, well, if I have to go back to Phnom Penh, because at this point, it's like, I am coming back here to live. I want to live here the rest of my life. There's no place else on earth I want to live. I want to travel. I want to visit places, and I have done that. I've been to Europe. I've been to China. I've traveled since then, but Cambodia is my home, and I knew that during those 10 days. I mean, so in 2003, when I saw City of Ghosts, it's like I want to go there, but in those 10 days in 2006, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life here, and my heart was Khmer. And so it's like, okay, if I'm going back to Phnom Penh, I still have 3 weeks before I need to catch my plane. I'm going to find out everything I can so that I know what I need to bring with me to live. Now, there was, unbeknownst to me, with all my research I mentioned earlier, there had been one ATM installed. It was a bank called ANZ, and it was on the riverside. And so there was one ATM in the country. At least I don't think Siem Reap had one at that time. I think this was the only one in the country. Definitely Phnom Penh. Uh, you could go out at night. That wasn't a problem. Uh, so it wasn't as dangerous as it was in the 90s. And I was so excited. I'm like, what kind of food can you buy? What kind of places are there to live? What kind of food, I mean, clothes can you buy? Like, so how much do I actually need to bring with me to move here when I move here? Um, yeah, and I started meeting people. I went to the Department of Cinema. For those of you that don't know, I was involved with the film industry, not the studio system in LA. I worked more in film sales, but I also worked some in production and craft service and um, associate producer, things like that, more on indie films. And but certainly it was a lot more than uh, a lot of the Cambodians at that time knew about filmmaking. So it was like, okay, I want to help. Like, there was no film commission. Uh, so I wanted to be here to help develop the film industry. I went to the Department of Cinema, met who was there. I started, you know, finding who I could that worked with film. And then when I got back to the US, I did the same thing from that side. I met with people in LA because I was living in LA at the time. Uh, Met people that had um, worked on films in Cambodia, and got their advice and their experiences of what they went through when they were making their films. One person literally said to me, if you were the one that told us to come film in Cambodia and we had the experience that we had, we would be suing you right now because their experience was so bad. Parts of it. Parts of it were good, parts of it were bad. Bad enough that they would have been suing me if I was a film commission bringing them to film in Cambodia and they had that experience. But that's the kind of thing I needed to know so that I could say, okay, this is what happened to them. So if I'm in Cambodia, how do I prevent that from happening? Pretty much had to do with corruption that they experienced while they were here. But the same kind of thing goes on in LA, honestly, um, where you have uh, gardeners that like they'll. I mean, they're not even like being paid to be gardeners somewhere. They're they just get a lawn blower, and when they're outside of a movie location and they hear the director say, you know, action, then they turn on the lawn blowers, and you know, leaf blowers, I guess. They turn them on until they get paid off, you know. Uh, so it's not just Cambodia that things happen in. But anyway, then I, because I'll wrap this up. It's been 40 minutes. If you've been listening this long, uh, I went back to the U.S. I found a Cambodian landlady. I immersed myself in Cambodian culture in Long Beach. Uh, excuse me, dancing every Friday night, learning all the dances and things like this. And in 2007, my own grandmother passed away right before I left to come to Cambodia. I was ready to go before that. I really, really, really wanted to get here in time for Water Festival, which is in April. And but my grandmother was like she hadn't eaten for 3 days, 5 days, or whatever. So they knew that when it wasn't going to be long, and I told my mom. I said, "Mom, Grandma understands me. Gurmy, I actually called her Gurmy. You know, Gurmy understands me. She knows why you know, I want to go start my new life. I don't want to wait. She would understand. You know, if I go now, she would understand." And my mom said, "But when she dies, it's not for her. It's for me. I will need you." I was like, okay, I get, I can't argue with that. So I delayed um, going until the end of April because it wasn't long for my grandmother to pass away. I wrote, as a writer, the family asked me to write her obituary. They also asked me to do her eulogy. Uh, so took care of all that, and then I with tons of bags, luggage, because you could just pay. You take as many bags as you back then. I don't know what it's like now, but back then you could take as many bags as you wanted, as long as you paid $100 extra for your bag, which was like 50 pounds. I don't know how many kilos that is. 30 kilos. Uh, so you know, I had like five 50-pound bags of stuff. Most of it was food, like chocolate, like See's candy and Hershey's and um, stuff like that. I didn't need to bring that many clothes or anything like that. Um, but yeah, and then I started my new life in Cambodia, and that was 15 years ago. And I'm waiting to be a citizen. I've all my paperwork's filed, and the actual document declaring my citizenship has been prepared, and it's been with the Prime Minister's secretary for 5 years, and he just hasn't put it on the Prime Minister's desk to say, "Here's your stuff for today," you know, and within that stack of things for him to look at for the day is my citizenship to sign. Um, yeah, so the secretary's been holding it back for 5 years, I guess. what can I do? I mean, yeah, people pay like $50,000, 100, used to be $50,000. Maybe it's 150,000 now, and they get their citizenship like that. But that's not me. It's merit based. So anyway, okay, I am gonna close this out. Um, Even though nobody came in during the live time, it was still good practice. And for those of you who are interested and want the story of why I moved to Cambodia, now you know. See you next time.